Been a minute since we've done anything from geography now, Barbie. But hey, we figure we're gonna roll a dice on a country. Cuba.
Cuba.
Yeah,
Let's do this. Land of cigarettes. Cigarettes? Cigars. And
cigars and
and
dope ass sandwiches and um, you know, party.
really, really strong coffee.
Yeah, really strong coffee. Yep. That's all we know so far. We'll probably learn more in 8.5 minutes here.
Yeah, let's do it.
3, 2, 1.
I'm not even joking. If you've never had a Cubano sandwich, just stop. You're doing everything wrong with your life. Just go pause the video, get one, come back here and press play, all right?
It's time to learn geography.
Panda.
And
At first, I didn't. I forgot to pause it and do the
Yeah.
animal because it's been so long.
it's been a while.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with what he said about the Cubano sandwich.
Oh,
Pause this, go get one, and then
great
come
sandwich.
back.
Great sandwich, bro.
Oh yeah.
Great sandwich.
Exactly.
It's the mustard. Oh. Hey, Geography Peeps, I'm your host, Barbie. So, if you've been following us on our updates, you'll know that this will be the first episode without a flag section. But don't worry, we will be doing Flag Fridays, so you can learn about the flag on Fridays. But until then, let's jump into the political geography of Cuba. So let's just jump right into it, all right? Cuba is the largest island in the Caribbean and is located in the northern Caribbean Sea, right where the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea meet. The island is made up of over 4,000 smaller islands, keys, and archipelagos that mostly surround the country's coast. These are divided into 4 main chains and archipelagos: the Colorados, the Sabana Camagüey, the Jardines de la Reina, and the Candarenos.
All right. So one of these ones right here, when I was on a cruise, in when I was like 10, my dad, we were so close. Our ship was to right around here, and then he and his drunken self, he was like, "Das ist Cuba. Das ist el país of Cuba," and I will never forget it as long as I live.
So you saw Cuba, man.
I did see Cuba from
There you
a
go.
distance, so I was close to Cuba at one point in the 2000s.
I forgot how close we are from the Florida Keys to Cuba. It's like 90
Yeah.
miles. Nothing.
Yeah. Literally,
Crazy.
it says
Crazy
it,
close.
yeah, it says it literally on the southernmost point. It's like 90 miles to Cuba.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yep.
Which is where you can find the largest of the islands after Cuba Island, Isla de Juventud, or the Island of Youth, though it was known for being a prison island that Fidel Castro was once sent to. Speaking of which, the entire island of Cuba somewhat resembles the shape of a vacuum cleaner. So anyway, the country is divided into 15 provinces, and Isla de Juventud classifies as a special municipality. The capital and largest city of the country is Havana, located in the north vacuum cleaner handle side of the country, right on the coast, and is home to the seat of government, as well as all these hauntingly beautiful classic buildings that have almost been stuck in a time warp, untouched for decades, that tourists flock from all over the world to see. Camagüey dominates the center, and Santiago de Cuba owns the south as the second and third largest cities. In the south, off the coast of the Santiago de Cuba province, you can find quite a few shipwrecks, many of which are linked to the militaristic past, which brings us to the most controversial little exclave, Guantanamo Bay. Let me just put it this way. Have you ever had a girlfriend or boyfriend that you broke up with, but realized you both had a dog that you shared before breaking up? Yeah, that's kind of what Guantanamo Bay is like. Not getting into too much detail, basically, the US and Cuba used to be really good friends, but then after some crazy stuff happened, they kind of cut off all ties, but realized there was still this huge military base set up on the southeast part of the island. Long story short, since the 30s, the US kind of paid Cuba around $4,000 a year to rent out the space, and since the revolution, Cuba has refused to cash any of the checks in protest. This has been going on every year, and it's super weird and awkward. The entire perimeter around Guantanamo Bay is even further encapsulated by a 2,000-foot or so land gap speckled with landmines so that nobody gets in and out. While as awkward as that may be, Cuba's interior is anything but.
Yeah, that's a bit awkward right there. I mean, how old is this video? Let's see. It says 8 years. This was 2016. So
Wow.
wasn't it during the Obama administration that they lifted the embargo on Cuba? Or I'm trying to figure out when that was.
Bro, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
That's something like that. I haven't. I don't know too much about Cuba, bro.
Yeah,
To be honest,
I don't know.
less than nothing. I know Cuban Missile Crisis. That's it. Like, and I don't even know that. I just know it happened.
Right.
So, yeah, Cuba. I don't know. I know Guantanamo Bay. I know that.
Yeah, we know Harold and Kumar tried to escape there.
Yep, yep. And what was it Bad Boys 2 or something like that? I don't know what they're on now, but I think Bad Boys 2, they had a scene in Cuba. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Let's discuss that in. Now, shortly after Christopher Columbus arrived in the Bahamas on his first voyage, he arrived in Cuba and was astounded, stating that Cuba was the most beautiful earth that human eyes had ever seen. So what exactly did Columbus see? Now, of course, it's a no-brainer. Cuba's beaches are quite magnificent with tons of diving spots along the coast. However, go inland and you'll see a whole other side of Cuba that you never knew existed. There are three main mountain chains, the Cordillera de Huanuanico, the Grupo Guayamaya, and the most important mountain range, the Sierra Maestra, dominates the southwestern coast of the island. This is also where you can find the highest peak, Pico Turquino. However, the Viñales Valley has the strangest mountains, the Los Mogotes range, made up of rounded tower limestone hills that have been blanketed with vegetation. Also close by, you can find the Pinar del Rio province, where you can find the largest tobacco plantations in the country, a commodity that Cuba is widely known for and has arguably the best quality in the world. Not saying that we directly advocate smoking here on Geography Now, but yeah, statistically speaking, Cuban tobacco it really has no competition. It's top notch. Speaking of which, Cuba used
Yeah, that's why they're in such demand.
Yep.
That's why everywhere you go, the most high-end places say, like, the biggest price tag is always the Cuban cigars.
Yep.
I don't think I've actually had a Cuban cigar. Have you had one, Dan?
Nope. I don't even think so.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Nope. Mm-mm.
Nah, me neither. Hopefully one day.
Someday.
Yeah, statistically speaking, Cuban tobacco it really has no competition. It's top notch. Speaking of which, Cuba used to be heavily dependent on sugar and tobacco production for its economy, but today, agriculture only makes about 10% of the national GDP and 20% of the workforce. Now things have shifted primarily to nickel mining and service and tourism. Coffee is taken very seriously here, though. Ask any Latino across the world and they'll know. When Cubans do coffee, they do it strong.
He comes back 5 minutes later, seriously, with a little coaster and a shot glass of coffee.
And apparently this is close to 84 shots of espresso. I had no idea.
Bring me a full-size cup of coffee. Take this back in the... I was frustrated. So the guy's like, okay, and what you want? Okay.
I should have known something might be wrong when I added the cream and it didn't change color.
So I picked it up to my face again and I drank the whole thing.
I drank that cup of coffee. It took me like 30 minutes. It was the most amazing cup of coffee I ever had in my life. Oh my God, for that 30 minutes, I could see into the future.
I knew I messed up, bro. I knew I messed up because the waiter looked at me and he's like, vaya con Dios.
I put that cup of coffee down, crapped my pants.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So I've only had it in like Miami.
Okay,
but
okay.
It is like coffee paste. Like it is delicious, super strong.
Like if you need to get something done that day, you have a shot of that and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's like it'd be like the equivalent of black tar coffee.
Oh,
If coffee were a drug, it'd be black tar coffee.
I got it. I get
Yeah.
it. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy shit, though. Okay. Good to know whenever I'm in Miami or if I'm able to go to Cuba. Like, am I gonna go to Cuba?
I have no idea.
I have no
I
idea.
mean, I think you can. I think we can go anywhere we want. The big question is, will we come back? That's the question.
Right, right. And I don't have the muscles to swim 90 miles. I'm sorry.
Not at all. Not at all.
Coffee down, crapped my pants.
Cuba is also home to a variety of wildlife and even a few endemic species not found anywhere in the world, like the Cuban trogon, the national bird with its sharp pointy tail feathers, this incredibly small frog, this bird with a hugely disproportionate head, a shrew that spits out poison at its enemies, and just like in the Bahamas episode, Cuba has its own endemic version of the hutia, a large rodent-like creature. Alright, so those are the animals. Now let's see who runs the show in Cuba, shall we? Now we reach the fun part, and by fun, I mean grab your popcorn for the comment section part because this is going to get a little intense. First of all, the country has about 11.3 million people and has one of the lowest birth rates in the Western Hemisphere. Now, this is where things get pretty confusing because there are conflicting statistics at hand when it comes to Cuba's racial makeup. The country is incredibly multi-ethnic and complex in its origins. Cuba will tell you that somewhere around 63% of the country is white, 27% mestizo or mulatto, and the rest are black with a small proportion of Asians at around 1%. However, it's not that simple. Even when identifying as white, genetic tests have shown that African ancestry can be traced in anywhere estimated between 30 to 60% of the population, which makes sense since Cuba has historically had a strong black presence. Over 900,000 slaves were brought to Cuba alone during the Atlantic slave trade. That's nearly twice as many that were brought to the United States. Then, of course, you have small rural communities of disputably indigenous Cubans that claim to have Taino Arawak heritage. It's a little hard to make a solid call, but hey, who knows? Of course, Spanish is the official language. However, Cubans have their own distinct dialect that any Latino can distinguish. The country is run by a Marxist-Leninist socialist one-party state currently led by Raul Castro, brother of the former leader Fidel Castro, who stepped down in 2011. This is where things get pretty interesting. In the simplest way I can put this, frustrated with capitalist exploitations in Latin America, Fidel and Raul, along with Che Guevara, whom they met in Mexico, overthrew the old Batista regime, inciting the Cuban Revolution. Yada yada yada, they became friends with the USSR, that angered the US, they put up an embargo, World War III almost started, but then it didn't because the X-Men stopped the missiles. Oh wait, that didn't happen. Unfortunately. Later on, the USSR dissolved, Cuba lost its stipend, things got even more messed up, and then finally talks and relations just kind of started rekindling all over again. By the way, Cuban Americans think it's ridiculous when all you college sophomore neo-hippies put up the Che Guevara posters on your dorm room walls right next to your Buddha statues and dreadlock wax because, hey, you're the future. Anyway, enough history, let's talk.
I don't know that much about Che Guevara, but if Cuban Americans are finding that weird, I'll go with them on that.
Yeah, they're like, just do. You're in college. Just do research. Just do research. Like it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. We've already opened up enough can of worms with this whole section. It tends to get the comment section going. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Diplomacy. So as we kind of mentioned before, Cuba has quite a complex outreach. First of all, Cuba would probably consider the Dominican Republic and the unincorporated US territory island of Puerto Rico, which by all reasonable definitions is kind of like its own country, as their closest cultural friends. As the largest sources of Latino influence in the Caribbean, these three have stuck out from day one and have always enjoyed each other's company. When it comes to the US, Cuba kind of just started to rekindle what was lost. President Obama lifted sanctions, opening the door for Cuban-US relations, and was the first US president to visit Cuba since Calvin Coolidge in 1928.
Oh, wow.
Keep in mind, there's already also a ton of Cuban Americans living in the US, most heavily in the state of Florida.
Hey, Jesse.
When it comes to their best friends, many Cubans might say Venezuela. When no one else would help them out during all the years of craziness, Venezuela stepped in and gave them supplies, food, and oil, and Cuba in return sent Venezuela technical personnel to offer social services. Chavez and Castro totally agreed on a lot of things and worked together on a lot of projects. In conclusion, Cuba became the only Caribbean island nation to adopt a Marxist-Leninist political ideology, and things got a little heated in the 20th century, but nonetheless, they're a proud, colorful nation of fierce culture and resilience. Seriously, must be something they put in that coffee. Stay tuned. Coming up next, Cyprus!
All right. Well, it's a good little crash course there of Cuba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
And
Yeah, man. I just don't know. I don't know why. I think that just maybe it's because it's just so close. I take it maybe for granted.
yeah. And
I put that on the same thing as Mexico and Canada, and there's Cuba's there.
right. And it's the closest one, besides, Mexico and Canada, which are directly bordering us. That's
Yeah.
the third closest country to us. Maybe you could argue Russia up in Alaska, but I think
That's pretty
Cuba's-
close too.
Yeah,
that's pretty close.
that's debatable as well. But anyway, that's I knew that the embargo was lifted and Obama was the first president to visit Cuba. I mean, for a very long time. So,
Yeah.
But that's good to know that we could potentially visit Cuba if we wanted to.
Yes.
Now, I guess. So, I guess all the time that we do Geography Now or any other crash course of any country, the what we're asking in the comments for those Cubanos that live in Cuba, how do we go to your country and not make it seem like we're an obnoxious tourist?
Yeah, and still, can we go to your country? That's
Yeah,
something. Let's answer that. Can we? First question, and then the rest.
Yeah, answer that one first, and then let's get to the other ones if it's possible.
Yeah,
Man. And if there's any other videos about Cuba or things you want us to talk about Cuba, let us know down below as well.
For sure. I feel like I need to know more about our neighbors.
Yeah.
I need to know more about our neighbors. I feel like I haven't figured out anything about Canada, Mexico, or Cuba.
Yeah, but that's why we're doing this. We've done all 3 of our closest neighbors. We've done Canada, we've done Mexico, and now we've done Cuba.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, thank y'all for watching. Subscribe, watch another video. Thank y'all channel members. And what now, Dan?
Unplug and do something legendary, guys.
And we'll see y'all next time.
Later.